Hey everybody, welcome in. Happy Monday. Things are moving, which is good. And let's just touch on what is going on. And the topic today is Moonvember got rejected. And the question is why. So I'm going to touch on what we expected, what actually happened, why it happened, and try and make sense of what's next and where we're going next. Again, nobody has a perfect crystal ball, despite the fact some people might expect that. But anyway, let's jump in. Math, money, and freedom. And this is edutainment. So first of all, let's look at where Moonvember missed. So here is a series of all of the numbers, all of the performance since inception. 2012 didn't really matter. 2013 was a huge year. You can see 2013, 2017, 2021. They're the big bull market years. And we have missed. So the big question here now is what happened? So if you take the average of all of these returns, and I assumed we'll make 6% now, just looking at the real-time quote for Bitcoin as we speak, we're at, call it 57,850. Okay, we just hit 59,000. It got rejected from there. But if you pull out that number, it takes us to about a minus 6% return for November, which is unusual for a bull market run. Again, it's normally 449%, 53%, and now we're looking at minus 6%. So this tells us a few things. Also, if you look at the average trend line, you pull out the big returns of 449, it's 9.26%. So we're off by about 15% on the gross return here. Also, if you include the big number, the typical November return is 58%. And that's why it's always referred to as Moonvember for Bitcoin, because historically it's been a great month. But anyway, there is some positive to this. And again, not slinging hopium, but the positive is the fact that this market run is different. This market run's running longer. Everything is different. So November 2017 is not like November 2021. Nor 2013. So that's good. There's a lot of positives there. Now let's look at this one. I know this has been floating around a lot today. But just to put things in perspective real quick, the Bitcoin drawdowns we've seen so far this year. Bitcoin has traded down 21.8% off the all-time high during this month's correction. If you've been in crypto for a long time, 21.8% is nothing. It's a nothing burger. It may be a surprise that this correction is actually the least severe in 2021. Measured in terms of drawdowns to the all-time high. January, minus 29.4%. February, minus 24%. April, minus 26.5%. May to July, minus 54%. September, minus 37.2%. So you can see here, not bad at all compared to where we came from. So what's going on? What is the reason for this? And why are we here? Well, we had big hedge funds shorting, which I covered. We had Mt. Gox FUD, which I covered. A couple of other little random matters, some regulatory concern. But the latest scare was because C19 has a new variant. Won't mention it. But the reality of this graphic here, which is very valid, is the infinity loop. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer or be negative or anything else. But the fact is, it's here to stay. It's going to create new strains all the time, and we just have to live with it. And that's just the reality. And I think the world is getting used to that as well, because the stock market reaction wasn't as bad as people initially thought. It tanked and then spiked right back, which is good. And so did crypto. So let's talk a little bit about the other related news is the Fed has a dilemma with this Omicron variant. Now, what does that mean? Well, the Federal Reserve looked ready to speed up its tapering of asset purchases, which means cutting back on how much money printing they do, basically. But now they face a quandary with so much unknown risk about this new variant, this new mutation. So Treasury yields looked to set up breakout higher, but then they tumbled on Friday as cash fled risk. Now the 10-year recovered today, up 6 basis points. Stock market also, but the yield curve is steepening. The 2-year yield is up 2 basis points to 0.55. Now the Fed are meeting on December 15th, and they'll discuss what they do next. Are they going to slow down money printing, or are they going to keep it the way it is? We'll see. I know that they are very concerned. Jerome Powell is very concerned with keeping the growth on track and employment on track as well. So if they were to taper, and that combined with the new variant could put a wrinkle in things. This is why we care, because this could impact Bitcoin. Now, in other good news, the bears retreated, but the bulls are back, which is great. So what exactly does that mean? Let's look at the chart here for Bitcoin. We had a triple bottom. You guys know I love these triple bottoms and see them all the time. But here, boom, boom, boom. This is just over the last month. Almost picture perfect between the top, the kind of the resistance where we had that rejection level in the middle and the bottom. And then we went into beast mode yesterday. Bitcoin added about $5,000 in 6 hours, which is a big move. ETH went from 3950 to 4500. And here we are. We kind of, the way it's moving these days, it goes up in big steps and stops, big steps and stops. And that tells me there's a big buyer in play as well. And we'll talk more about some of those too. Now, PlanB was in the news, and he basically said a whole bunch of stuff, not that his model is invalidated. Everything is delayed. But he did say one thing that was kind of interesting, and that is, if Bitcoin doesn't hit $100,000 next year, yes, his model is invalidated. And remember, his model is a stock-to-flow model. It's supply-side driven, not demand-driven. And there's a lot of factors that can impact demand, like black swan events, gray swan events, money printing, interest rates, that type of stuff. If, for example, the US dollar offered 20% interest rate return, that would take a lot of market share from Bitcoin, and it would move away out of the asset class. So again, we'll just watch everything carefully and see where we go from here. In other news as well, this guy, Jack Dorsey, hitting the news. Everybody's talking about it, but I covered this back when I covered the Miami Bitcoin conference this summer. And he, if you see his tweet here, the old tweet, he said at the Miami conference, if I were not at Square or Twitter, I'd be working on Bitcoin. And he said this, months and months ago. So literally, this is not a surprise. This is not a worry. This is actually a very big positive for Bitcoin. He has quasi-dedicated his life to Bitcoin. He's doing so much now at Square regarding virtual mining type operations, wallets, work with Lightning and tips, and tying all that into Square. So expect some really good things now that he's dedicating his life to Bitcoin. Big fan of the guy. Now, in other news as well, more Bitcoin bullish news. Bitcoin processed more than PayPal. That was a pretty staggering statistic. This is per a block data report, and it said Bitcoin processed 62% more transactions in terms of dollar value in 2021 than PayPal. Obviously, if somebody's sending $1 billion of Bitcoin around versus a whole bunch of people buying $10 items, $20 items of PayPal, it's a big difference. But the point is, it's quickly catching up to MasterCard and Visa. And again, remember, Bitcoin is trailing the big credit card companies, but they've been around for a long, long time. And also remember, Bitcoin is a simple, decentralized, young, like 12 years old system. And the way it operates is pretty spectacular compared to the way the traditional finance companies do operate. So expect some big changes over the next 4 or 5 years with these traditional companies, because Bitcoin will be moving more money around as this part of this whole decentralized movement that Jack Dorsey wants to be part of as well. So it's super interesting. Speaking of other people that are Bitcoin bulls, MicroStrategy, I tweeted this early this morning. They are layering in deeper. Reading this, my tweet, by my math, they own 0.86% of all Bitcoin that ever exists, because I believe there will never be more than 14 million Bitcoin due to coins lost, etc. You've heard me 1,000 times say that. Now, if Saylor grabs another 18,956 Bitcoin, he will own 1% of all Bitcoin in existence. Oh, and by the way, the intrinsic floor value for MicroStrategy, based on our models and calculation, is about $788. So today it was trading at $100 off of its floor value. So basically, I think 98.5, 98.6% of the market cap of MicroStrategy was all intrinsic Bitcoin value. So funny to see that $7 billion worth of just Bitcoin. And speaking of this as well, to talk about proxies, I know a lot of you hold Bitcoin proxies, and this proves people can actually be whole coiners through Bitcoin proxies. The Norwegian government indirectly owns nearly 1,800 Bitcoin, and they do this because they own MicroStrategy stock as a hedge within their pension scheme or some sort. So if you look at that carefully, the Norwegian government owns that 1,800 Bitcoin. That's worth over $100 million. And I think it's a international domestic pension fund, something like that. And that means every Norwegian citizen owns about 35,000 sats. So congratulations, everybody in Norway actually technically owns Bitcoin. So that's, and I think 92% of car sales are EVs from Tesla too. So fascinating country to watch. Now, switching gears for a second, talking about Vitalik Buterin. Obviously, we all know ETH has gas problems, scaling problems, and they are, as they say, a victim of their own success. They're growing so fast and being used so much. This is why there's such high gas fees. It's just can't grow any faster with the adoption. And I think there's Ethereum only has about 10 million active users. Imagine if it had 100 million active users, which is where it's going to pretty soon. So he is noodling solutions. They have this new thing called EIP-4488 to help solve the high transaction fees for rollups and the large amount of money spent by users, etc. And it's a short-term solution to reduce costs, not a long-term solution. Now, he is very open and honest, and he did say it is a short-term solution. Obviously, there's a better fix for it, but it's going to take longer to do. But he did state this could be that band-aid that they need. There is a problem, though. What they're going to do this is they will reduce the block size, or the call data, I think it's called, from 16 to 3 or something like that. And that way they can increase speed. But he did say if they do that, they could sacrifice security. So we'll watch this space carefully and find out exactly what they do. It would be a shame for them to do something as a band-aid to increase speed and reduce security and then bring the whole chain down. That would be very bad. But anyway, we'll see. Let's look at the chart real quick for Ethereum. Here you see the support levels. Again, it's like 3950, 3950, 3950, 3950, 3950. We hit that yesterday. We hit it a couple of days earlier. We hit it a week ago. We hit it 3-4 weeks ago. So obviously somebody buys a lot of Ethereum at 3950. That is a very solid support level. I call that the Snipe zone, where to buy Bitcoin. Now the question is, where is Ethereum going next? There have been some extremely bullish talks about the Bitcoin price for the future and the end of this bull run and the end of this year. And in fact, I'm talking to Raoul Pal tomorrow. So you'll see that live interview and we'll talk about that stuff and a whole bunch of other things. But here, this is the Ethereum MVRV score in the Snipe zone. Now, the MVRV typically suggests a buying opportunity when it's down at that level, the horizontal line at the bottom, and it just bounced off that. These lines, these 5 lines, actually correspond directly to the chart I showed in the previous slide. And this means that if you are an Ethereum bull, it's definitely a good place because it signifies there is a bottom, although it has breached that line back during the summer, but that's when everything was kind of thrown out. Now, as an example of why Ethereum is so busy, this is some metaverse news in the latest development of the NFT techno financial situation. This is kind of crazy. I know a little bit about boats, and I know boat maintenance is extremely high. So the problem is not necessarily buying the boat, but maintaining it. But I guess if you have a virtual yacht, you don't need to maintain it as much. But this boat is, I think it's called the Metaflower, which is like the Mayflower super mega yacht, and it's sold for 190 wrapped ETH, which is about $650,000. Again, 80% of transactions on Ethereum are very, very large institutional sized transactions, so people don't worry about gas fees of $100 or $50 or $150. So it's not a concern. Speaking of other related news as to how things go a bit crazy in this crazy, silly world in which we live, there is a token called Omicron. Think COVID variant, and it went up 900%. So that's just, I don't know. It's a ridiculous world. What can I say? Now, let's talk about some fun news, though. Innovation per ARC. This is a visual, and a big thank you to Sanjay for sending me this today. This is their innovation platform enterprise value, and how they believe it's going to go from 14 trillion to 210 trillion. That's a 15x, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if you have a 10-year time frame to invest in this space, there are some radical S-curves that are colliding. We've touched on this a few times before, and so has Kathy Wood from ARC, etc. But literally things like DNA sequencing, she says AI, e-commerce, Bitcoin, and blockchain technologies. etc., are all hitting together. You got autonomous vehicles too, molecular diagnostics, 3D printing, it's all over the place. All of this is happening at the same time, and it's going to radically change the way in which we live. That's why kind of people look at the metaverse being a radical part of that too. Everything is changing very fast, and the acceleration is being brought on by the C19 situation that we live in. So all of this collision of all of these different technologies will displace old technologies and enable humans to achieve feats that were previously unimaginable. So that is kind of where we are. The news today, I'll leave you on that startling note. I will be digging more into this, and I'm going to put together something around this whole space. I won't tell you what it is yet because it's not built, but it'll be super interesting, particularly for those people that want to position themselves over the next 10 years, get into certain investments. And again, it's never a good recommendation to buy and hold something for more than 5 or 10 years. But sometimes there are certain plays that are going to be winners for the future. No ifs, ands, or buts. They include the Googles and the Teslas and other plays. So we'll be digging into that and seeing what we come up with and try have a portfolio built around this whole innovation, this 15x innovation, because 15x returns pretty good. If you take away the debasement of currency, of course, may not be as good. But let me know if you guys are interested in seeing that. And that will be it for today. I will be on tomorrow with Raoul Pal. Stay tuned for that. And I hope you like the content, everybody. Take care and have a great night. Oh, big thank you as well to all the mods in the channel. Thank you so much and all the support. Bye.